I have been going through the budget, and at some point after you've met with the department heads, I'll have some suggestions for you, basically looking at the comparison of, for example, of the current year, what we budgeted and what we received to date, and for purposes of determining fund balance, we don't officially make adjustments to it, but you can recognize that additional revenue, and it'll have an impact on the final fund balance numbers that you have. And then as I've been going through, I'm looking at the current year, I'm seeing how those estimates are reflected based on, into the budget year that we're proposing, how those estimates compare with what we have in the current year. And there's some suggested adjustments that we could make. And that's all they are, they're suggestions.
Sure.
But they would have an impact on the final fund balance, if you wanted to consider them. But we'll go through those at a later time. So,
Were any of those, Jim, based on the O'Brien and Gear recommendations for any of our water improvements? Because they did spell out, what we should put in each individual year, since that was drawn up, and we haven't followed that at all.
we haven't even touched that. No, I was looking at that today. Sometime, when we get to when Chris Surma comes up, and we meet with him, that might be a good time to review that.
Okay, do you know what I'm speaking of, Jim? The O'Brien and Gear water evaluation study that we received a couple of years ago, Mr. Barris as well. It's in a binder, and that goes over upgrades and actually addresses some of the water storage issues we might have and how to address those as well and everything, so. But it spells out specifically amounts of money that we should be putting away every year towards these projects. So when they do come to fruition, we're not bonding out the entire amount.
Well, in this budget summary, I did make suggested amounts for water and sewer that we could consider putting into a reserve fund. And, but we'll go into that in more detail also, because you have to understand when we get into setting up a reserve, what restrictions there are and there's different ways to do it. And in fact, if we have the time, I might ask Jeff Smith to come down and maybe give you a report on what's the considerations for that.
That'd be very helpful.
He's pretty well expert, he's more.
Well, again, I think we should take into consideration what Doug said, part of that, figure in what we need to set aside for those. Yeah, that makes sense.
Brad, do you have any time constraints tonight if we're starting later? Okay.
My birthday, you guys already ruined it. You got me.
It's your birthday. If we don't own that,
Happy
we'll
birthday.
for another day.
You already ruined it, Doug.
Hey, happy freaking birthday.
No,
Not gonna tell us how old you are?
no. Not on TV.
Go for a station break?
Yeah.
We could put in a plug for Sweet Perfections or something.
There you go.
Brad's birthday brought to you by.
I'll tell you what, they got great cutout cookies and
Oh, I know, I know.
awesome pepperoni bread. Ever had it there?
I've never met a bakery I didn't like. Never. I have such a horrible sweet tooth.
Good stuff.
Is
Dunkirk on 5 by 5 and Jerboa or
Near the Falcon Club.
yeah.
Are we not?
I think we've been on.
Yeah, that's a good.
I tried the new place over here too. They had real good stuff right over.
I think Julie gets.
Giving you an itemized, let them go through.
He kind of gave us
explain.
some,
If you have any questions, you can ask them directly.
he mentioned, talked about the possibility of those retirees, but they probably wouldn't. But
Yeah, the first part of what I handed out, I did talk about the fact that these are all individuals who are currently there that are eligible to retire. No one's indicated to me that they're gonna retire. But it's just something I like to put out every year so that everybody understands that, should someone leave, there's a hit and a benefit. The hit is they cash out accumulated vacation, holiday, earn, and things like that you'll have to pay out. The upside is, and the upside outweighs the downside significantly, is you replace them with a probationary officer at significantly less cost. So you recoup all of your losses and then some from the cash out. But I just like to keep everybody in the loop about potential people. So then the personnel line, I leave that to Jim to work the magic numbers based on contract rates. And so the number that Jim put in, I trust is the number.
I hope so.
Yeah. And then the overtime rate is really just again, you add in the contractual raises plus what we feel are our needs. And I will tell you that we have good years and bad years with overtime. I urge caution when you look at a previous year's overtime usage. You really should go 5, 6, 10 years back and look at those things, because in the past we've had 2 officers get hurt and they're off, but they're on paid leave, and then we accumulate a lot of overtime as a result of that. Then you have a year where no one gets hurt and no one's off, and so your overtime is less. And right now, what we're in the middle of right now is we're having a very difficult time maintaining part-time officers. And when I don't have part-time officers to put on the schedule to fill in for full-time officers when they take time off, it creates a significant amount of overtime. And we're in the midst of that right now, where we're down 3 part-time officers out of 6 part-time officers. We've replaced all 3. 2 of them are in the middle of their training. One will be here Thursday for his first meeting with me. But these individuals are literally still in the academy. They're doing their field training as a part of their academy completion while they're here working for me. So I'm trying to squeeze field training hours in between field training hours at the academy. So it's taking a little bit longer to get them trained, but we're really up against it, and we need to get these part-timers on the road and working. But I want to point that out to you when you look at the overtime, that I wouldn't be looking to save money by cutting out some of the overtime, because that can jump up and get you. The next line is supplies, and you can see on the sheet I gave you, I kind of broke down some of what our supplies are. Oh, wait, okay. Yeah, I'm sorry, my sheet doesn't necessarily go in order with this sheet, but you can find supplies on here. Oh, it is on the same page?
Yep.
Oh, okay, it does go. All right, good. So you'll see the items that we're purchasing with supplies. When you look at last year's expenditures, were basically exactly the amount adopted.
Right.
That usually means that there were probably some budget transfers in there already to bolster that account, which means that account may have been a little lacking to begin with. In addition to that, what we're doing is we're bringing in, it's time to start phasing in new in-car computers. The in-car computers run about $4,000 a piece. We've had those for about 5 years now. One of the docking stations already went bad. So this supply line is showing where we're starting to phase in these in-car computers. The county pays for the modem. There are 4 modems. There's one in each marked unit. Those run about $60 a month. The county pays that. That hooks the in-car computer up to the mainframe in Mayville. It allows the officers to run the plates and wants and warrants and access the central storage in Mayville. So that's one of the things that we're looking to try and stay on top of.
That's your increase to 17,000 there?
Yes, yes.
I see it was cut by 1,000. What was that about? Or it's adjusted by 1,000?
The mayor
I
adjusted,
tried $1,000. The adjustment you say is the amount of money that I took off.
Well,
After
1,000,
discussing
1,000.
Okay, you okay with the,
Yeah, I mean, we'll do whatever we can't accomplish this year, we'll accomplish next year as far as transition. I'm not driving around with 4 computers that don't work right now. I'm driving around with 1 that doesn't work, so I'll be okay, yes.
so basically with the increase, you can get 2 new computers for the cars in addition, and above the roughly 9,000 that was spent expenditures for last year?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
So you're looking at
Yes.
2.
And if I can do 2 and 2, it'll be good. Uniforms, you know, I'll tell you that number, I look at that number and I see how close it is to
That's
the
close.
budget, and that probably means there was some transfers there. And also, the thing with uniforms, there's a lot of ebb and flow to the uniforms. The thing you have to remember is officers, we buy our vests out of that, and the vests, manufacturers put expiration dates on the vest of 5 years. The vests are running about $1,200 a piece, so they trickle in as they expire. The officers will bring them in. In addition to that, when we're going through these new hires, like we go through new hires, we never hire 2 that are the same size.
of course.
It seems like, I have big cabinets downstairs that I keep anything that I can take back from the new hires, I do. Obviously can't, there are certain items like hats you're not gonna reuse. But we recycle all the uniforms, all the jackets, and we reissue them as much as possible. They wear out, they tear. Officers come in assorted shapes and sizes. If we get part-timers and we hang on to them for a year, my uniform allowance is perfect. If we go through a whole bunch, it starts to stretch my uniforms a little. In addition to that, we're responsible for leather for the full-time officers. So the holsters, we've been going, as officers come to me, we've been giving them the newer holsters. The newer holsters are the ones that allow for a flashlight to be mounted on the bottom of the weapon, so that they have a flashlight attached to the bottom of the weapon. But you have to have a new holster when you go to that. The agreement I reached with them was if they buy the flashlight out of their clothing allowance, I'll replace the holster for them. It's in our contract. We take care of the leather anyhow. And slowly that's been occurring. They've been kind of coming in and getting the new holsters. That's been going on for a couple of years now. So, and then I kind of listed out in there other issues with or other items that are purchased out of clothing, including the dispatchers. The dispatcher, every time the dispatchers or I'm in an interesting situation, just so you know. I have 2 unions in my house. So when the CSEA gets a bump up in their clothing allowance, it has an impact on my budget. And frequently I'm not in the loop when these things occur. Or when they get a bump up in their meal allowance, that has an impact on my training budget. So I'm looking. I have to cull through 2 contracts at a time to make sure I have the funds in my proposed budget to cover those things. And so those are some of the items there. The next is utilities and telephone. Again, that's right up against what it was. We jumped up to 3 on that because last year we were right against it. I leave that to Jim because those bills come out of downstairs really. So utilities. Then we go to travel training. We were at 54. As you can see, we used 54. What that means is we went beyond our budget line for travel training. I'm asking for 8 there. That includes your firearms training. That also includes all your ammunition for your firearms training. We're going over to something you're going to see in my capital project, not to jump ahead, but I'm looking to move into simunitions. That is a type of ammunition that fires from actually a weapon that's identical to the Glock and to the patrol rifle, but you can use it, you can live fire it, given the right equipment, you can shoot it at actual participants, kind of giving us a more realistic training element. There's a push-pull to this. Obviously the good side is that it's far more realistic and actual, above shooting at paper. Paper is not real at all. What it does do is many departments that have gone over to this have cut back on the amount of live rounds they shoot at the range, and taken that money that was spent on that type of ammunition and put it into simunitions to help cover the costs. So it can reduce your ammo costs, but it increases on the other side. But we got to jumpstart the program. So that's part and parcel of this. In addition to that, I'm trying to get more officers out. I sent 2 officers to the training to become certified instructors for simunitions. Those types of trainings cost money. But if we're going to keep current with what's going on, I'm all about training. But
Are there any departments local, Dunkirk, Silver Creek, any other departments using that?
the Sheriff's Department in Jamestown are using it right now.
Right now, that's
Yeah.
the closest department that's using that simulant.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they're using it. As a matter of fact, the training that I sent the officers to for this was actually in
Yeah.
Mayville because they were training their people to jump over to.
Kind of like a
as well.
train-the-trainer kind of thing.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's exactly what it was. Gasoline, again, I leave to Jim. I'm assuming that number is a solid number for that.
That's a solid
Yeah,
number.
that's based on the gallonage that track down at this DPW.
Right, my usage
Yeah,
based on
yeah.
the proposed cost coming this
Yeah,
year,
right,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Maintenance and equipment, you'll see, again, we were right on the line there, which indicates to me that there were budget transfers there to make that number work. I've moved that up to 18. One of the things that, nothing's getting cheaper, different items that we're dealing with is the repairs to the automobiles. Tires have gone up significantly. I don't know why. We buy them on state contract, but when they go up, the cost of maintenance goes up. We're doing something with our copy. Currently, our copier is working. We have a contract for that, but that copier is aged. I'm going to try and get another year out of it, but I don't want to get caught. I'll give you a great example of what happened to me last week. Our computer that houses all of our photographs and video of our crime scenes crashed, and that computer is probably worth about $1,000. But to send the hard drive out to recover the lost documents is they want $3,000.
expensive.
They want $3,000 to recover those documents. I don't have.
Do you have a backup on that?
Well, there was a communication error between myself and NetSync with regard to that. I was under the impression that it was on our backup. They were under the impression that we were saving that stuff to another program that they were backing up. So due to a communication error, it was not. That's been rectified since. I've had, yeah. That was,
You're still gonna need those to be recovered, so that's a cost that you have to.
well, we're hoping that I'm going in another direction. I'm trying to utilize another law enforcement agency to see if they can, up in Erie County. It's not what they do. They don't want to be in the computer repair business, but they're willing to take a look at it for me, and if they can do it, they're going to do it. So before we expend those funds, we're going to try that. Yeah, it would be fantastic.
I got a question on the copier. We don't lease a copier? We don't have a contract with a copier?
We have a
place?
maintenance agreement on the copier. The maintenance agreement I have on that copier includes toner and drum.
Right.
And then overages. So, yeah, we own we buy the copier, and then we have a maintenance contract with, and we always have overages.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying, when I owned my pack and ship store, I just leased a copier.
Yeah,
And that included everything.
yeah.
If it broke down, it's their copier. You know, it's just,
Yeah.
just a way that I didn't have to worry about going through a situation like you did.
I'm not opposed to anything like that in
You
the
know,
future.
I don't know,
for
maybe if
next,
there's a way we could save some money by leasing some sort of equipment.
Is it something that the village can do, lease things?
Yeah, at least.
So, should take
It's
a
an
look.
option, you
Yeah,
know,
we
so
should
we
take a
don't have
look.
to expend buying $3,000 or $4,000 copier that we're at
Right.
the mercy of.
Yeah,
But, again, you know, that's really a minor bump up. If you think about this,
Yeah.
we're going from 15,000 to 18,000. That's not a big bump up for an annual maintenance for a police department. I tried to keep everything as solid as I could. You go down to, on-street parking from there, and with, on-street parking, that's actually, I think it's half of Greg Meyer's salary plus 25% of Christine's salary for the person. That's where you're coming up with that personnel cost. And then so those are contractual based on Christine in the court, because she does the processing of the intake of the money from the tickets. And then the supplies at $5,000. So what we're doing is we're slowly every year, as you'll recall, we're replacing the meter heads with the electronic meter heads, so that they're not spring operated and breaking all the time. So that's what we've been consistently bringing that 45 or 5 across This is just to keep replacing the meter heads out there till we get them all replaced.
Brad, in your summary here, you're talking under maintenance of equipment, generator needs to be replaced. Is that the one that was damaged or by the
So-
vehicle?
So so what's happened there is, this is kind of a sidebar situation. The generator was taken out by a truck. We just finally, actually this week, earlier this week, got the quote for the replacement on it. I'm gonna tell you, it's like $30,000 to replace the generator. We've turned it into our insurance carrier, to get the money from the motorist. We've gotten a quote from, the company to put a generator in that will run all of Village Hall and not just the police department. I think that was $60,000. Don't hold me to these numbers, they could be off 1 or 2,000. My recommendation is that we get a generator that will run all of Village Hall in an emergency. This is where people are gonna wanna come. And this is where we're gonna probably operate out of. And, right now, Village Hall will not have heat or electricity in
It
the
doesn't
event of
make
a natural
sense. It really
disaster.
doesn't make sense now to have a generator for the hall, village hall. Makes no
So
sense.
I'm recommending that you put that $30,000 towards the $60,000 generator. But, I have to get,
Where's that in the budget here?
No, I didn't have a number.
Oh, okay.
no, and I didn't put it there because
That's
we're
a
just
new
talking about
number,
me right,
yes,
we're just talking about me right now. I'm just sharing with you that's.
Yeah, we didn't have that number,
Yeah, it just came this week,
Oh.
so.
Maybe you wanna add 30,000.
Well, I don't wanna add anything to my budget. I mean, if you wanna put it in my budget, you can, but don't hold it against me. I don't,
Oh, because the
Just make a
30,000
side
was,
note of
we're
it, that's
going
something
to
we can-
replace his generator, but the thing is,
think we
we
can
need
work
one for
that
the
in.
hall, village
some
hall,
other things that we
because,
can-
as you said the other day, what's gonna happen if the power goes off and the opera house is full?
yeah. Right now, they have battery-operated floodlights.
They do, but
That may or may not come on, depending on whether the
that's
batteries
right.
have been changed.
I mean, that can be a safety issue for 150 people, 200 people in there.
And you may need to house people. You may need to house people in
Yeah.
there, and you need them to be warm and,
No, absolutely.
Yeah. So, but yes, that's why that generator item was there. So, I know that there's a breakout for, the drug task force officer. I think it's actually on page 2 of this 2-page item.
Before we
Say-
get,
Oh, I'm sorry.
that's okay, before we get into that,
It's over here as a
Okay,
proposed adjustment.
okay,
You have it on
yes.
there. That's just the labor.
last year, when you gave me the tour of the facility downstairs, the police facility, I noticed that you had, a lot of your evidence was not,
For the
was put in
officer?
closets and
Yeah,
lock boxes
yeah.
and stuff.
What?
I noticed that you're probably gonna need some more, increase in your budget to house some of that stuff. Have we looked into, do we have to keep a lot of that in-house, or can we store that off-site?
We are storing some off-site now. We're utilizing the village barns,
Yeah,
the upstairs. And we're going to, one of the cameras that we're gonna be putting, in this
Right.
fiscal year will be observing that door to that
Evidence,
room.
yeah.
That room, if I get the other items that are in there out, which most of the items that are in there are garbage, they just need to be disposed of. They're not mine.
right,
That'll have ample storage room for me for quite a while.
okay.
Yeah.
So we don't, I mean, I was just thinking of some way we could upgrade that facility for you a little bit more,
Yeah.
or provide, a little bit more money to help.
What we did was we started buying, thanks, I appreciate it. We just started buying plastic tubs, and just marking the tubs and moving the
them
evidence
stored.
over. If they're cases that are no longer in process, but items that have to be maintained
Right.
forever.
Right.
And it's only gonna get worse. We're gonna have to, I can't imagine 10 years from now, I'm gonna have 5 freezers plugged in someplace
Right.
because
DNA.
I have to keep all all that DNA comes back to us.
Yeah.
And I have to keep it all, and I have
That's
to
why I
freeze
thought
it.
this would be something that I wanted to talk to Jim about, because we discussed that when we had the tour that one time, that eventually we're gonna have to start putting some money away to have these facilities
Yeah.
and storage facilities and things like that. So that's another thing we should look for down the road.
Well,
You know.
I think not down the road, I think I'd like to propose that we would put some money aside for RFP for the engineering study for a public safety facility, including the police department. Because these are things we're gonna need anyhow.
Right.
So if we start putting money towards that, I'd like to see us put in at least 20,000 for us to initiate that study.
Yeah.
To make this.
Well, this is gonna be part of the conversation when we get towards the end of the budget, that we can all sit down and
I mean, let's-
make notes of what we feel that we should really start putting away for.
And that's what, well, as one of the things you just talked about, that this is one of the reasons for doing that, I think. And clearly, we need that facility anyhow.
Right.
And that's just one of the many, many reasons.
Right.
So I'd like to initiate that by putting some money in and getting going with that.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, so really the final 2 items I'm gonna come back, well, before we go to capital, the final 2 items I wanna come back to under personnel are the drug task force officer, which I've broached with the board now. I think everybody, it's nothing new. I don't think it's an item that, if you have questions, I'm more than happy to answer them, but I think we've talked about it a
Yes, we
lot.
will. What is the number we're looking at on that? The amount?
$81,000.
81? I thought it was 85. But we'll let 81.
That's just,
81.8.
that's the wages.
That's just the wages.
Just the wages, right.
Yeah.
But not all the other costs. Mhm.
With benefits, it's quite a bit more, but
Yep.
Brad, this,
120,000 about.
I actually would like to sit down with you more on this, because it seems like this is a more of a North County thing. I know it's in conjunction with the Southern Tier Regional Task Force and the Sheriff's Office, but,
I'd like
and I
to
would like to sit down with Jim as well. He once he gets back after the 25th. But I mean, I would like to know more about those particulars.
Sure.
And that aspect
We
before
don't
I
have
make
too
a
much
decision.
more about it, just a thought that we're going back and forth.
I have a lot more questions, so.
Sure. I'd like to see the money put in there, and if it doesn't, for some god-awful reason, it doesn't happen, I mean, I think that we're probably all on the same idea that all the way around, that it's gonna work, we're gonna try to work this out. But I'd like to see it put in there so that it's available, and if it doesn't get used, well, then it doesn't get used, but I think it'd be smart to put it in there.
Okay, my second question would be, Jim, where are these funds coming from?
Well, the proposal that they'll come out of your operating budget. Any new position.
Okay, so we're using like the fund balance or other
No,
revenue sources, or I
Will
guess
have an
that's,
impact on the fund balance. Right now, we're proposing to spend more than we're taking in this proposed budget, so, yeah, it would add to that.
okay.
So it would
Yeah.
increase, it would decrease the fund balance.
At this time, Brad, I'm not saying I'm in favor or not in favor, I just would like more information. I know it's something you brought every year, but I've never really sat down with
Sure.
either you or the sheriff to discuss the particulars on
Sure.
it.
I will tell you, that we need more bodies. We need more bodies, and the drug issue is a significant issue, and the reason I like the drug task force is because when you are on the team, you get the resources of other agencies in addition to your person. You get the resources of the sheriff's deputies that are assigned to it, and the Dunkirk officers that are assigned to it, to help you with your drug issues. So that's why I like the drug task force as the place we put the extra person, should you make the decision to bring this extra person on. The other alternative is that if for whatever reason, being a part of the drug task force isn't palatable to people, then we need to bring a uniformed officer on and get back. We had 16 paid officers here. We are at 14, and by the way, 14 includes me. That's 14 police officers, including the chief of police, to run a police department that has the largest bar population in the county, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every day of the year, has a four-year college and entertains all of the student population of the two-year college down the road. This is, it's a miracle that we have kept the lid on and accomplished what we have accomplished for as long as we have.
Were those two positions lost through attrition?
Yes. Well, we had a brief layoff. Ben Kravitz was laid off by a previous board.
So that would have been 3 at one time.
Well, he was brought back when an officer left.
Oh, okay.
So it was, the first officer was lost through attrition, the second officer was laid off and brought back when an officer retired. Poor decision-making on the part of the board at the time. Nobody in this room, but the thing is we always had an 8 at night till 4 in the morning shift. And then we had a drug task force officer. And those two things combined allowed us to make a significant impact on some of the crime issues that are plaguing us right now. And quite frankly, those crime issues weren't nearly what they are today because of the heroin and meth epidemic that we see today. That wasn't even in place back when I had those officers prior to losing them. So, you know, if I like the drug task force, if that's upsetting to people, then I put forth the uniformed officer, the 8-4 officer, as an alternative. But we can talk more about it.
Thank you.
Yeah. The one other item, before we leave personnel, the one other item, and I don't know if it's reflected here, Jim, and I apologize, but we talked about it, that we're paying our part-time officers $14 an hour.
Nothing.
I can't keep part-time officers. I'm interviewing officers, they're finding out what the pay is. I'm coming to the board, presenting the names, going back and offering them employment after the board's approved it, and they are turning down employment with us, which brings me back to the board again. We have to have a competitive part-time officer rate.
We didn't discuss that on time. My suggestion is 1650, to go to 1650.
Oh, what's your thought?
What 1650 gets us back into the market. I can tell you that the sheriff's department's paying $18 an hour to their part-timers.
Yep, I saw that on their website.
Yeah.
I'm good with that, if you guys want to put that in there to bump that up into this.
Yeah.
Okay, this proposed adjustment for 17,000 reflects a $2 increase per the part-timers.
Oh, it does, so
That's already
it's
in
to
front- you already-
$16.
okay.
Okay.
Well, that's just a proposal, so you can see a number that would increase.
Okay.
See it, Doug?
Yep.
Yeah.
But that only brings you to 16,
Yeah, we need another 50 cents.
Oh,
just so you know, right? You
No,
said
that-
$2 an hour. Brings us
Well,
from
you're
14 to 16.
14 to 16.
Yeah.
oh, you want to go to
1650.
16, you want to go to
1650.
1650.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
No, that's okay. Yeah, no, that's
So-
okay.
So we're adding
I mean,
two.
I would,
That's
yeah,
nothing.
I
It doesn't really
propose
increase it.
1650,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we can, yeah, that's fine. We need to be competitive. We need, yeah, that's
So-
chasing, you know.
You have a
trying to-
comment here on street parking personnel, you want to eliminate that line?
Well, by the way, that's there all the time.
Okay. No, I don't
no,
know.
I mean, this is boilerplate stuff that I bring forward. And the only reason I say that is, it's just confusing, like, when you look at my personnel costs, if say that we took the meters out tomorrow, we wouldn't get rid of half of a police officer, because
Still
I
there.
have 2 uniformed police officers on the street during the day. And one of his job functions is to collect the meters and write the parking tickets. If we were to eliminate those meters, I still need 2 uniformed
Right.
police officers on the street. So I think it's confusing and misleading to people when they see it, because frequently new people to the board look at that and say, well, maybe there's a potential cost savings there if we were to stop the part, and so that's the only reason I always leave it there, but it doesn't matter to me if it stays there, I just
Well,
point it out.
I mean, I like, just me personally speaking, I like to be more realistic. Are we spending a half a police officer's time?
No.
On parking meters?
No.
So we could reduce that amount.
We can
Sure,
do
you
that.
could say it's a quarter of
Make
an
it a quarter
officer.
of an
Yeah,
officer, I mean,
yeah, yes.
but how much time, how often are they collecting them?
Well, and that's an issue that I've been remiss in. I have to take responsibility for this. They are not collecting the meters the way they should, and when the meters get full, they get plugged, and then they don't function. So not only are we not getting the revenue we should be getting, they're not functioning when people are trying to give us the revenue we're getting. So what we're doing right now is we're in the process, and I broached this subject last week into this week now. We're gonna move the collection of the meters to midnights, when there's no on-street parking, and it can be collected quicker with less interference. And we can do it on a quiet night where they're not getting pulled off to answer calls all the time. I promise this board that we will be far more diligent in the collection of the meters and maintenance of the meters, and you will see that reflected in an increase in the revenue next year, this year.
They're doing it weekly or
It was
bi-weekly?
down
Oh,
significantly.
gosh, no, we were doing it about 4 times a year. In the winter, if you can't get to the meters, you can't,
Right,
you can't collect them and you can't put money in.
right.
We were doing it about 4 times a year. We need to get that to about once a month to once every month and a half is what we need to get it to.
So, do you wanna consider, at least this is just an internal adjustment, we can reduce what's allocated for wages, cut it in half. We can put that back up into his budget, and then it reflects a more realistic cost
Yeah,
for
I think that's-
providing the service. I
That's a
mean,
fair thing, yep.
Again, I don't care, as long as everybody understands,
Yeah,
okay.
okay,
So that's, can we move to capital?
yeah.
Did I mention it's my birthday?
Yes.
Okay, all right, I just wanted,
The cake was supposed to be.
Today?
yeah, today, you guys,
Hi, birthday.
yeah, this was your gift to me.
I thought you were gonna bring a cake for tonight.
I just found out. Okay, well, this,
Okay,
So the first item obviously is replacement of police car. What we do is we do 1 car a year. What that does is that if we did it properly, you basically get 6 years out of a car. There's 4 marked cars and 2 unmarked cars. Whenever possible, the oldest marked car comes out of service, turns into an unmarked car, and then one of the unmarked cars goes away. And historically, we've turned those over to another department within the village that needs it. The DPW, the rec, the fire hall, whoever, or we've sent them to auction. I recommend we start trading them in against the cost of the new cars. And we've never done that. Other departments are doing that. They're bringing their cars in as a trade-in. The fire department did that most recently when they replaced their car. They took it for the trade-in, and quite frankly, they're getting far more on a trade-in than we're getting in sealed bids down here. So I'd like to try that this year. I've got 42 there. We're gonna do, the Explorer has gone up significantly in cost. We're gonna jump over to I propose we jump over to the Durango. The Chrysler dealership here has them at contract pricing. Well, it's a piggyback contract, but it's legal. We are gonna start moving over to that from the Explorer, because they've priced themselves right out of the market. So that first item is the vehicle. The second item is the upgrading of our body cameras. The body cameras, believe it or not, the cameras themselves have reached their life expectancy. They're about 5 years old now. The batteries don't hold a charge anymore, so we need to cycle them out. The next generation of this brand will allow us to continue to use the software that we already have, along with the storage components we already have. That's why we can do it for $15,000, because all you're doing really is buying the cameras and the docking stations. So that's why I've got it at 15 there. That's a quota.
How many cameras do we have?
We have 24 cameras.
24.
So what we have 20 officers, 4 additional cameras for cameras that go down or get moved into evidence due to a major.
The batteries can't be replaced because they can't, typically they make the old ones obsolete.
Yeah, they're sealed in there. It's kind of like an iPhone. They're sealed in there.
Gotcha.
They're not batteries that come out of the bottom of the unit and you can replace them.
Gotcha. Oh, that's,
Yeah.
I think that's a good purchase, because as you just have had, the instance, it came in very, important,
well, I think that's great to
evidence.
have.
It was crucial. Yeah,
It
So-
is, yeah.
it was crucial. So that's the second item there. The third item is, I don't know if anybody's looked up and looked at our police sign on the front of the village hall.
I noticed it the other
It's
day.
pretty embarrassing. It's coming apart, it's pulling off the building, it's falling down. So I'd like to replace the sign to the police department. And then the final item there is $5,000 to get the simunitions equipment that we need to launch that program. So very short and sweet capital project list.
Yeah, pretty simple.
Where are you on the building, your repairs and improvements to?
Yeah, well, I'll beg for forgiveness eventually here. No, because we've kept the ball rolling. They were back again today. They're starting the planking. They're finishing up the flooring. They're starting the planking and the cove basing, and then that's done. The dispatch, the one piece of dispatch furniture is on back order. It should be here any time now. We should be done with carpeting by the end of the week. The flooring should be done by the end of the week. The painting is already done. And the last piece of dispatch furniture should be here. When that gets here, we need to get county radio down along with NetSync over, because the heavy lifting is moving all the drop downs for all this equipment to the other side of the room. Because what's making us illegal is all the drop downs are on this side of the room, and the people who are coming to the window can read the board, can read the screens, and they're reading names off the screens, and they're seeing pictures, and we can't have that up. It's illegal. So we have to move. So we have to
On the other side.
bring 180 degrees, bring the dispatch area to the other side of the room. So I have to pull all those drop downs up into the ceiling, bring them across, and bring them back down again, and hook everything back up. So that will require NetSync, but can't do that until the equipment arrives.
Yeah.
So we're that component away from being done with the project.
I mean, it does look pretty good now.
Yeah, I
Not
agree.
excellent, but pretty good,
Yeah,
much better.
I think for me, it's 1,000 times better.
Yeah.
It's 1,000 times better.
So for the time being, you're adequately funded for the renovations, repairs that you're doing?
That's what we.
Well, okay. I'm I'm probably gonna go a little over budget on my capital project for this year, but I'm gonna push ahead and hope I have some leftover in other lines to offset that. So I would like to get that off the plate and not come back to you and ask for more money next year to get that done. I'd like to have that done this year. So that's my goal, and I may be begging forgiveness in 2 months' time. But
I'll do it before the end of the fiscal year.
yeah, well, that's what I mean. At the end of the fiscal year, I may be begging forgiveness.
Yeah.
But I think we'll be okay.
I mean, all things considered, that's, I have no issue with that.
Thank you. And if you came down and saw it, it is much, much better. There's one other item I'd like to do. I'd like to formica the old countertop. I don't even want to take that out. I'd just like to reformica it. But I'll deal with that in next year's budget out of supply. I'll get it done.
an idea of a cost, what that.
I haven't had the guy come in yet. I got a guy, yeah, I have 2 names, I'm gonna call the guy and have him come in. And that's me, that's it.
Thank you.
All right.
Well.
Oh, yeah, no, take your time.
This email, Mayor, that you had proposed here, some increases in
What's
wages. You proposed salary increases.
Yes, some increases
yeah.
for the troops.
I think the proposal that the mayor gave us was adequate. It reflects cost of living increases. I have no issue with that
And
currently.
I'm sorry, I don't know, I'm not
Okay.
privy to that,
Okay,
but,
It's $2,300.
okay.
yeah, roughly
If I
2%.
remember correctly, it's
Yeah, you
If we're
proposed
going-
2,300.
22, okay.
I don't know if we're discussing that
than
portion tonight or
2%,
not,
2.5%.
the department heads.
Yeah, we can discuss the whole department heads
at one
separately.
time.
Oh,
if-
okay.
If it's okay with
But
you.
thank you,
Oh,
I
sorry.
appreciate hearing that, though, that
Right, that's-
You
means a
might
lot
be
to me.
getting a raise.
Yeah.
What's that?
You might be getting a raise.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of disheartening when your employees are getting cost of living increases and step increases and all that,
Yeah, it's
and you sit back.
I appreciate that, thank you.
Thank you, Brad,
All right.
very much.
Okay, Brad, thank you.
Thank you. First June tonic will be, for all you.
It's a-
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you, thank you.
Take a 10-minute break.
No.
I apologize.
Do you have any other handouts?
Yeah.
Or-
Do I?
Yeah,
I
like
gave
Brad.
Jim my original.
Oh, okay. Brad gave us some extra. I didn't know if you had any.
Yeah, I couldn't find it, so. But I know you've had one.
I have one, yes. But I've written all over it, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did we have a call or was that the radio test?
That was radio test, but they're still up at 183's main with carbon monoxide, and they're fighting with the landlord.
Do you have the capital?
I do, yes. I do. I didn't see it
Oh,
before.
it's stuck in
Yes.
there.
Storm damage.
Floor is yours, chief.
Okay. I should have brought a higher computer. All right. We can start with personnel line. That includes 10 full-time firefighters plus myself, plus one part-timer. One of those 10 being promoted to a lieutenant's position. Currently, there's a fire academy that starts in July, so that 10th position most likely wouldn't be filled till later in the year. There's a new civil service list coming out test is in April, that list won't be out till mid-August. The earliest academy would be September, possibly. Otherwise, we're looking at next year before opportunity to get somebody trained for that. I don't have any, well, I'd take that back. I do have one person who is eligible for retirement. I don't think I'm going anywhere, so other than that, we don't have anybody within 6 years of reaching that retirement step.
Can you go through, in our budget here, can you go over the firefighters? You said 9 chief and one part-time?
And one lieutenant. So we're looking at 10 full-time.
The lieutenant is is one of the 10.
There's 9 firefighters, one lieutenant's position.
That's not reflective on here? Or is it?
It's
don't have a name
reflect,
for
they're
the
different,
yard.
it's different in different parts of the budget. So that's,
Okay.
it's probably an error there.
Yeah, we know. Cool.
The money that's projected there is for 10 full-time, 9 firefighters, 1 lieutenant, the chief's position, and the part-time position. As you know, we trained one of the guys that we had hired before left, went to Jamestown. He's agreed to stay on part-time, at least be able to get some of his training and skills back to help us out as much as he can. By putting that 10th person on there, it does increase the transporting hours. It adds 40 hours a week to our transporting. So that would be, we would transport Monday through Friday, 7 in the morning till 11 at night, 7 days a week overnight, and then not sure where the commercial ambulance service is going with things. I've actually been following Starflight and Stat Medevac or anything. Rumors today going around that they're going to shut down their commercial service in Dunkirk as of June 1st. And that'll really push us into a transporting everything all the time mode.
Now, where would that put us in mutual aid as far as these other communities that don't have the ambulances that we rely on All-Star? Do we contract out with these communities if we're gonna be?
Once the hospital, our CON currently doesn't allow us to contract, get into like a contract with them. Right now, they're running under the mutual aid agreement, which is really not mutual aid.
It's one-sided agreement.
Once the hospital,
Yeah.
if the hospital does come to the Fredonia area, it would be covered under our certificate of operation. Anything that comes into or out of the hospital
Oh, really?
would fall into that, yes.
Good.
Yes.
So then you could potentially contract with others or,
Well, that comes with issues, though.
yes.
You
Yeah,
know,
that-
it's
that
good,
comes with-
It does,
but
yeah.
it's good, but can we do it? Do we have the power, the manpower to do it? Do we have the ambulances to do it?
Well, you'd have the revenues coming in to increase your manpower to, if you're doing it anyhow right now.
We're gonna be doing it anyhow for the 911. The revenue stream to offset the costs are the interfacilities and the take-homes, the over-the-road mileage. We have a golden opportunity coming up to capture that and almost create a business, you know, like a water district or a sewer district in here where we're generating revenues that offset that. In order to do that appropriately, you need the people to do it first.
Yeah, it's
Yes, it would be an
chicken or
investment.
egg kind of thing.
Well,
Well-
yeah, but
You definitely have
this
to
is
have people
like,
to
you
do it.
know, either we see it as an investment for something that's coming, and we need to get,
How far
be
ahead do you
prepared
have
for
to
the
plan?
investment.
Yeah, if the hospital's gonna be, won't be built for 18 months, so how far ahead do
More
we,
than that, actually.
how far ahead do we have to plan for those, to have the extra staff?
You couldn't do it until it's actually in operation. Correct.
Correct.
So you couldn't do anything for 18 months or until the hospital's actually in operation.
For the interfacilities,
For
we're gonna,
facilities.
our 911 transports are gonna pick up going mutual aid until, you know, none of the other outlying agencies have shown any interest in bringing in a ambulance to their
So
departments.
what, I see what you're saying is that the problem at hand is because of this, shutdown of the other.
Yeah, All-Stars.
Yeah, if it, I mean,
We're gonna have to do it, and we need to, actually, somebody's gotta do it, and that would prepare us for the
this weekend, they literally is the first time they had nobody.
I mean,
increase.
someone will do it, someone.
Someone will come in and take
yes,
over.
come in. There's
Whether
no,
it be
there's no
a
way.
commercial service out of Buffalo or Gowanda or whatever, but there's more than enough business to go around, and, you know, it's a good opportunity that we should look to prepare for. There are safer grants available in the future, different things. We do have the EMS department, that's separate from the fire department that we could add on to.
Well, that'd be my thought, because you don't need to train a firefighter paramedic for just
Right.
ambulance runs.
Right. My main focus is to provide the emergency care for Village of Fredonia, Town of Pomfret, for fire and EMS, and then anything else we do, to provide that care appropriately, we need to generate revenues to be able to increase that staffing levels.
That's the problem though, because even with mutual aid, you can be on mutual aid outside the village, and then if something happens in the village is not covered.
That's right, that's a
And,
problem.
and that's a problem.
We could be in the town right now with, you know, there's two guys working right now, and they've been up at 183 East Main Street if
Wow.
something else happens.
I mean,
Who determines mutual aid? Is that the counties?
Well, yes, the county went to a mutual aid agreement, you know, fire-wise, you know, you need us, we'll come help you, we need you, you come help us, and that's if they can give and take. That's what mutual aid is supposed to be. Not, hey, you got an ambulance, we don't, so we're gonna use yours. That's kind of where it kind of went to, but if we say, hey, we're not coming anymore, well, if you get a fire, they'll play the games.
but the fire is different from.
Fire's different from
the-
EMS.
from,
Right.
you know, from.
But it's
from
all
paramedics.
blended, it's all
Yes.
blended into one
So is there
mutual aid
any
policy.
possibility to
Well,
have
what
any
prevents us
contracts
from charging when we go?
We do,
with them?
we do the patient,
Okay, we charge
Yes.
the patient.
Yes.
That's a good.
not the,
We charge the patient, that's a different story. However, can we have a contract with them, the way we have it with the town of Pomfret?
currently, no,
We cannot.
no.
Not even.
Our certificate of, our operating certificate is for Village of Fredonia, Town of
Okay.
Pomfret specifically. So
Okay.
we can only operate into that territory until or until a hospital opens up within the village. If it opened up in the town, we still wouldn't be able to, but being it's in the main municipal jurisdiction of the fire department, then it's covered.
How many staff members would you need to bring us up to what you think that's gonna cover the need,
If
the need
you,
here?
if you expanded out and I'll use Village of Medina, I mean, they're up to 20 full-time guys now and running, you know, they're bringing in $1.3 million in revenue, and their operating budget's like 1.2 for payroll. And they have contracts with the neighboring communities to provide ALS for, and they do interfacility transfers from.
But to be more realistic, more closer to
Yeah.
where we are.
Yeah. In a real world, I'd like to see 3 firefighter, medic, EMTs for
In
the
every-
fire department side, and then start off, you know, with just EMTs, paramedics on the EMS side to do interfacilities and take homes, and healthcare is changing so rapidly, I'm not really sure, you know, even with a new hospital, it's just a temporary stay until they go to another facility. And there's been people that have stayed here a day or two extra waiting for a ride to another facility.
Did you just state that hiring, your thought was to hire 3 firefighter paramedics, and then
I'd like to see.
for the
I'd-
transport, inter-hospital transport, 3 or so?
I'd like to see 3 firefighter paramedics. I've been talking with the union as well, possibly going to a firefighter EMT. I'd like to see 3 guys on the clock, 3 guys on round the clock to cover the 911 calls within the Village of Fredonia, Town of Pomfret. It's pushing us around, we were just shy of 2,100 last year. It's busy with double and triple hits, and then have a EMS department that's just doing EMS calls, interfacility transfers,
How many on that?
take homes. Well, you would need a driver and an EMT to start, depending on how much you'd want to get into it. I mean, you could, the call volume's there. You could start with a couple of full-timers and, you know, 2 full-timers, 2, 3 part-timers.
But they don't need to be paramedics.
One would have to be paramedic, one could be a
One,
basic
yes.
EMT.
So a basic EMT and one.
Currently, the contract does not allow that.
That's under the fire department.
Under the-
If you put a basic EMT, if the EMS division is separate, then
Oh, okay, you're talking.
they would probably go
I see what
in,
you're saying.
they probably would go into the fireman's contract. as a, as a union member, the union would consider discussing firefighter basic EMT positions within the staffing currently. They're open to discussing that, which, as, Doug, as you know, we've lost many people over the last how many years of not being able to create jobs for them and different things from the community that are firefighters, EMTs elsewhere. If we had an opportunity where maybe we lower the qualifications down to a position where they're a firefighter EMT and hired from within, keep some of these people here from leaving.
What would fund a 3 full-time firefighter, whether they're either paramedics or EMTs, that would run 911 calls for the department within our fire district?
We're going to be transporting 24/7. I mean, it's just a matter of time, and the revenues from that would go to offset some of those costs, as well as the revenues generated from interfacilities.
I mean, like we were discussing with the police department, that's, over the lifetime of somebody's career, it's $1 million or so for an employee. At least. So, I mean, that's just, I realize our call volumes are up and that, it's just a matter of dollars and cents too, and.
Well,
and
it's an essential service, like, the police department, DPW, you have a medical emergency or fire, you dial 911, you want somebody to show up. And you
Or
don't
do
wanna
we,
wait.
or do we rely on mutual aid more now too, like we're providing all the mutual aid to everybody else?
Listen to the scanner.
I know,
I mean, you hear 15, 20 minutes before Brockton, Portland can get out, Cassaday, I mean, it's.
But usually when we have mutual aid assistance calls for us, we usually call the city of Dunkirk, and that's usually a.
And their policy is to send one guy until they can figure out if they need more, or, they're sending their lieutenant or chief on duty and, engine from.
That's kind of crazy. Do they have a policy where their ambulances can't leave with?
Oh, if it's for an EMS call, yes.
Oh, okay.
If it's a basic EMS call, wherever we're at, we'll send, depending on, it's set up, the district is broke down into zones, and depending on where the call is, we've set up run cards to the closest agency responds.
Oh, okay.
We don't have any basic EMTs, right now?
No, we do not. No.
Can we then, can we do that, have just a couple of firefighter basic EMTs?
It would be, we could, down the road, it would be negotiations with a union.
They have
It would have to be negotiated.
It's a negotiated item. There is no negotiated pay scale for that, and in order to change the civil service job posting title, I would need some type of a pay scale that would correspond with that announcement, which it's too late now for that, because the test is in like 2 weeks, I think, or next weekend, week from Saturday.
Firefighters exam?
Yes.
Well, these are all things down the road, these aren't.
Yeah, and it's something that,
Far down the road, it's gonna go quick.
Well, the other problem is that the pool is not as big as we would like it to be.
right, it'll be interesting to see now this upcoming civil service test, it's on the 27th of April, the county has lifted the restriction of being a county resident to take the exam. Before, you had to be a Wichita County resident in order to be eligible to sit for the exam, and this last exam, that was not on there. I don't know whose decision that was to change it, but.
It's kind of crazy. I mean, I almost like to see it in another way, having a residency requirement. I mean, when you have half your staff that lives in Erie County or 40 miles away, if we have a major incident, if you get an all-call, you have about 1 or 2 people inside the village that are able to respond within.
Negotiable item, and civil service is, I mean, they're just following the laws that are there, so.
I imagine they didn't have too many people, that's why they were.
Well, I understand that.
Historically, sorry to interrupt you, Doug, historically, I was the first person hired for the Fredonia Fire Department that did not come from within the village or up through the ranks of volunteer membership. Everybody else prior to me had been, a couple after me. We lost, because of that age group of those gentlemen that came up through that 25 to 35, they got to a point in their life where they were looking for careers and they went elsewhere and found them, and the majority of them are down south as firefighter paramedics. And there's probably 6, 7 of them.
Probably.
I mean, to start this conversation about this problem and this, you know.
I mean, and it's
How
not,
you wanna-
I don't wanna say that we're unique. We are unique here as to how we operate in the combination department. The nation is in a crisis with volunteers. There was a report released today that showed the statistics from 2017, and the volunteer membership is down somewhere 20–25% across in the last couple of years. So it's not just here, it's everywhere, and everybody's scratching their head and trying to figure out how to fix it.
Jim, which number here reflects all the personnel that Ryan was speaking of? There's a 717,431, and on this sheet here, we have 714,981. I guess it didn't,
It's 714,981.
That's the way
It's on the second page. That's, has been revised now. That's why I told you you should be looking at the.
Oh, okay.
Like I said, included in that is an additional 40 hours of transporting that would be gaining with that extra position eventually. We're on a track. Last year we brought in just shy of 300,000.
Yeah, we're projecting 300,000
Yeah.
for this year, and we're pretty close to that already in the current year.
Yeah, we're at like
289.
Yeah, so we're close to.
We're gonna be over 300,000.
And that's just been going up from there
That's
in
for
the last
10
couple
months.
years, so. With
The
probably.
revenue side.
With probably
Oh,
100.
definitely it's gonna go over 300, yeah, I expect it to go.
And that was only estimated for income last year. I think I
Yep.
put like 243 or something down for
Yeah.
generated revenue, so we're we'll be $60–70,000 over what was anticipated.
And that covers it. Yeah.
Again, just what's your total personnel, 12 total, including you? That you're
Yes.
proposing?
12.
With the part-time position, yes. Any other questions on that line? The personal overtime line, the overtime, I kind of is a, if we could use the title, extra time line. The firefighters in their contract get straight time up through 53 hours. At 53, it becomes time and a half. That was a negotiated item many years ago, so on an average, they work 48 hours. Historically, I've always put anything over 40 hours in that line. That includes any hours over 40, any of the holiday time that they work, any sick time that's covered, vacation time that's covered, emergency call-in. We've averaged, let me find if you remember, Brad talked about like a 5-year average for emergency call-in. That's what I've done, and roughly, it's 280 some hours in emergency call-in. Also included in that line item is 24 hours of, with the number of staffing that we had, it gives us an odd number of transporting days. If you remember, originally we had Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and didn't transport Wednesday, Friday. A couple of years ago, the board chose to add Monday through Friday, 7 to 3, so those additional 24 hours are built into there at straight time in that extra timeline. There's probably more than enough time in there with vacation times, and the extra time that we picked up is basically an additional person, but with the guys working straight time up to 53, it alleviates some, basically a benefits package for an individual. Also, and like I said, also in there is holiday pay, a rough estimate on an average of sick time based on what's earned, late calls, emergency call-ins, that kind of thing, like half-hour holdovers here or there, or any fires, and that really doesn't add up to too much. And that is literally from this year to last year, that is about a $301 difference from what I had proposed last year to what was adopted. I figured that line out at an average, basically a salary average of everybody in there on time worked. And with adding the other position, it went slightly down because we took one of the, highest paid individuals retired, and he had received extra payments for longevity and EMT pay, that kind of thing. He was one of the last ones to get EMT as a additional, so he was not required to be one. One of the other things I want to mention real quick is in the regular personnel line, that does include their uniform allowance built into there, as well as their longevity, and I think that's it. So that's all built right into that line. Any questions? With the amount of PTO time in that that the guys are covering, and rolling over, basically I could have somebody off every week for the entire year and filling it with the extra shifts. Ready to go to the next one? Equipment and safety. This is going up slightly from what it was last year. I had, in there are our physicals, for the firefighters, our OSHA training that's required every year, any replacement of damaged gloves, hoods, due to wearing out, old age. One of the big things that increased this budget line is the mandated cancer coverage for the volunteer firefighters. I put $2,200 in there. It was right around $1,700 this year. I expect possibly one or two to be added to that next year. That's a cost that's not going away and is mandated by the state that the municipalities pay. There's some talk on there. I shopped around, we ended up going with the VFIS, which is one of the cheaper ones. It's around $137 per firefighter. I think I have 13 on it right now.
Just interior?
Yes. That have had, over the years, have had 5 years of fit test and different things. There's 13, some of them aren't interior any longer, but they're still covered under the policy.
Would that policy fall under contractual rather than safety equipment? Half dozen.
I put it in with the physicals, and I mean, the physicals are required as well. It's just one of those, I guess that's where you put it. It's, we can switch it over to the other one.
It's just, yeah. Doesn't make a difference. I mean, as long as we know what the money is for, doesn't matter, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, it's
Okay.
it's mandated. We can't do anything without it. supply line, we're at 10.4. My budget, where did that go? I'm at I'm at like $9,100 now as of the end of March on there, so we're pretty well close to that. Out of there, pass alarms, SCBA's, pagers, portable lights, monitors, office supplies, paper, toner, janitorial supplies comes out of there as well. You know, toilet paper, clothing for new employees, uniforms for myself, batteries. Each SCBA takes 3 9-volt batteries, and we have 4 of them, so we replace roughly, we're probably replacing around 150 to 180 9-volt batteries a year in these at X amount per battery, and you can't run there's specific batteries you have to put in there for their optimum performance, otherwise they fail. Any questions there? Utility line, basically natural gas, phone service out of there, service contract, included in the utilities, will be with the Health EMS EPCRs that we're using. They use, their cloud-based, so I was looking at putting some type of, whether it be hotspots or modems into the vehicles, whether we go with a data pooled share or something to be able to connect our heart monitors to the EPCRs to the cloud base, and grab all that health information right away and be able to transmit it to and from the hospitals, as well as on the fire side of things, as well as pulling up pre-plans and building diagrams and that we've been working on to have access to that on the scene.
Is that what the county uses in all their vehicles, whether it's sheriffs or otherwise?
The sheriffs have a modem. They have the modems in there. FirstNet is who I'm looking at currently. The sheriff's department is building out a tunnel for FirstNet to be able to get into their system as well. There's some state contract pricing on those that I'm actually meeting with a guy on Thursday to discuss this a little bit further. Not sure how much data we'd actually use, because we're not gonna be streaming like video or anything. It's just basically simple, you know, data back and forth. We might be able to get into like a shared pool from within ourselves for a small amount of money. Otherwise, it's like $32 a month for each data modem, unlimited. But like I said, we're not streaming live video or anything down. It's just gonna be, you know, documents back and forth, so it shouldn't be that much of a data usage.
Would those just be the ambulances that would need it?
Probably the ambulances, and maybe the engine.
Frontline?
Yeah. And then as they, you know, switch around and the equipment's, you know, a one-time cost, they do have some like hockey pucks that you can, that they're willing to let us try. They're 99 cents upfront pricing, but it's, you know, the range on them is not the greatest, and you have to turn them on and off, and the battery life. They're more of a residential use for, you know, you're traveling to Florida, you grab it, throw it in your car, and you've got, you know, Wi-Fi signal for the kids all the way down.
Do we have cell service for the vehicles that, like, I know, like with my phone, I have unlimited data, I could use my phone. Like in the ambulances, do they have a department phone or anything in them?
The one of the other things I'd like to add into this is my a cell phone for myself. Rick was working on it before and it never came through, but the department has 0 phones over there as of right now.
Okay. I was thinking like in a vehicle using cell phone as a Wi-Fi hotspot, but I don't know how.
Everybody, I was going to transfer my phone over into a plan as well, but the data is actually cheaper than,
Going through.
yeah, to just to have data is cheaper than to have unlimited data tethering and hotspot and all that stuff. But those are all included in the under the utilities line in there. Travel training, I have $6,000 in there for next year. That would include my travel training as, going to Alabama for the Fire Officer 3 class in the second part of the budget year. My training and room for New York State Chiefs is comped this year, so it's no cost out of pocket for the village. It's just me getting out there and back in the vehicle. So the money that I would normally use for State Chiefs will go towards the other training in Alabama. Therefore, it leaves like $4,000 in there for the volunteers to cover half of their training conferences and that out there, and those are slowly starting to come in.
Okay, at one of our last meetings, the volunteer department body made it very clear that they would like you to make sure that recruitment and retention of the volunteer base is covered.
We'll
So-
get there.
Oh, that's not under,
Not under travel training.
okay, I didn't know if it was under
Nope.
training, okay.
And not a travel training as well, it's mileage. I usually put the fuel under the gasoline. We do, voucher reimbursement if somebody does it out of pocket, and that'll go under the gasoline item or the fuel item. And then the conferences and local trainings that they go to, whether it be state
Okay.
chief sponsored or anything else.
I didn't know if it was covered under there.
Nope, that'll be under contractual, I threw. So under contractual, it's bumped up a little bit with the increase in the town of Pomfret contract share, which is 17.5%. They get, August of this year, they'll get $10,805. In March, their payment will be $61,227. So that'll be for this next fiscal year of the part of the town contract goes to them. As well as we pay half of the disability insurance that they carry, that's roughly $3,900. We have service agreements with the stretchers for maintenance and repair, service agreements for the Life Pack 12s that we still have, the heart monitor, the 15s, we bought a 5-year service agreement with them on. Our stretchers have a service agreement out of there, as well as our automated CPR machines and that. And then I had added $5,000 in there for recruitment and retention for the volunteers to the contractual line. And with it's not free money to them. They're gonna have to, I've discussed they'd have to have some type of a plan in place of what they're gonna use it for, and I would assume I'd bring it back to the board for their approval, because I'm not just gonna sign off on a check for them for that. So it's, it's there. What they choose to use it for, I think, would probably be a joint effort between the board and them to make sure it's used fiscally responsible.
So it's just the 5?
$10,000 is gonna do the trick.
5?
10.
It's 10, there's a 10.
Did you say 10.5 from the town budget was also going towards it?
No, for recruitment and retention, I have $5,000.
Okay, well, what'd you say about the 10.5?
The 10.8 is for their August payment of their share of the 17.5% of the town contract is broken down into 2 payments. One is August and one is March.
Okay, well, that's not, okay, that wasn't
No.
specifically earmarked for recruitment retention, the
No,
$5,000.
The $5,000 I have is earmarked for recruitment retention.
Okay. Does the rest of the board understand that? Right now, like Chief Walker was stating, we have a big problem with recruitment and retention of our volunteers.
I understand.
Okay. All right. Do you understand, Ryan?
I do, thank you.
Okay, sorry, I won't explain anymore.
Yep, you're good.
Maintenance and equipment, the gasoline line is what, what do we have here? Gasoline is $9,500, that's set by,
The price
gym,
of what we-
basically, the price of fuel, and based on our, I mean, that's one of those that, you know, if we go over budget on that, we're not gonna park the truck, so it's so hard
I
to
mean,
know.
pretty much all these lines
Yeah.
are, indicative. If you don't use it, the money's gonna stay there. I mean, what are you
Right.
gonna do, go crazy and buy paper?
We, on my computer program that I have here, basically the budget that I put together and is pretty close to minus a few things here and there with the mayor's proposed budget. But it's pretty much, I do a 5-year average of what we've done in the past and with increased call volume and that, bump it up just a little bit in certain areas. So it's not, I'm not, making numbers up arbitrarily out of the air, so. But the 9,500 maintenance budget is 45,000. It was cut to 42 last year, and will probably be 40. I'll be over this year. I'll probably be at like 46,000. The fuel pump on our generator went, and that's about $3,100 to repair. And that's basically what put me over holding off on some routine maintenance that I was going to put under next year's budget as well, just to,
Just that little bit of bump up is fine.
yeah, it's just to stay under.
Yep.
And that is for all the equipment and, building maintenance and upkeep as well. So barring any, I do have, one, damage to one of the vehicles the other day. They backed into, something at the college. Cosmetic, we're working on, a temporary fix till we can get it to a body shop to fix it, and that'll probably be like August of next year. I did
Say they, August of next year?
well, this next
Oh.
budget year,
Oh,
sorry.
okay.
Yeah, not 2020, next budget year. I'm
This
thinking
August, but
budget year,
next
this
budget year.
upcoming August, yes. I received a phone call yesterday from the, ambulance, supplier who we awarded the bid to. The chassis has been delayed about 45 to 60 days. So instead of a June delivery, we're looking at probably end of July, first part of August. As of right now, they did give us the option to give us the new one, yeah. They did give us the option to, they're having problems with a red cabin chassis in both the F-Series and the E-Series. We got the E-Series. They offered to paint a white one red for us, and the feeling between myself and the salesman was Medics, who builds the box, offered to do that as well, and our thought was, I'd rather go with the OEM paint right from the factory as opposed to having somebody else paint over top of it, and then you lose your paint warranties and different things. So we can wait an extra 2 months, I think, for the other truck to arrive. So,
How did Dunkirk get theirs red?
it came red. It just, I mean, it's in the, I don't know where it's at in the supply.
Seems kind of,
Well, theirs was ordered
the year before.
theirs is a 19 and it was delivered January, so figure it was probably ordered July-ish,
What year is this model gonna be?
19,
You also have a 19.
yes. Ambulance supplies. Do you have one of those under, oh, it's just down below. Bumped it up to, we were at, I don't know what I was at. 10,000, bumped it up to 11, with the increased call volume and that, I'm within $900 of meeting that budget this year without any transfers. We're pretty good on supplies right now, where, we get a couple of hot, humid, dry days and we utilize some, CPAP mask or something, we're, over budgeted there. But the good news is if the supply line's that high, the call volume has been up and the revenue side of things are up as well. EMS training, there's $3,000 in there. We are contracted with, instead of paying somebody to go to paramedic school and sit in the classroom and that, I went last year with Target Solutions, which is an online-based CME refresher that we were awarded like a authorization from New York State to participate in. part of that, it costs $100, roughly $100 a year per person that's in there. The good news is after 3 years, they'll reimburse based on your certification level, so a paramedic gets $500 back. So every 3 years, we're getting $500 back on a $300 investment. I have it in here and rolled out. Last year, I had spoken with Rick, we were supposed to roll out a separate training line in the MS budget.
There's one there now.
There's one there now, so that it'll appear. It was kind of there next. So part of being in this program with the state and the reimbursement that we're getting from the state on this program is it has to be put back into, it has to have its own line item and put back into a dedicated fund there for that. So it costs roughly, not even sure how much it costs. Let's see, I've got about $2,000 a year in the Target Solutions for the online training. And then on top of that, there's advanced cardiac life support, pediatric and trauma life support classes and CPR that come out of there as well for that training, as well as EMT books for volunteers if any of them take the EMT class or anything like that. Contractual, ambulance contractual is our EPCR company, the Health EMS. It's $177 a month for that. That's a 5-year guaranteed locked-in price. Any service or anything that they provide, we get all the updates in that for the set fee, as well as our billing company is $20 per PCR that are submitted, and roughly thinking about 850 PCRs next year will be submitted to them for billing purposes. So, and that number there might be a little light. However, if we do go over on that line, we're billing a lot more and increasing the revenue side on that as well. We're at with 2 months left, we're probably just about break even from what was last year. So we're just about right on target for what was budgeted last year without the increase. And, you know, revenue side, would probably figure around $300,000, being very cautious on that, being more realistic than, I mean, I could say we're gonna bring in 400 and some thousand, but I'd rather go low and come in high than vice versa.
I just have one quick question, Ryan, on the personnel again. If you promote somebody to lieutenant, you're looking at increasing your personnel by 1, correct, full-time?
I'm looking at increasing the personnel by 1 anyway, for the 10, which is increasing the transporting hours. The lieutenant's position is just a promotion from within. One of the 10.
They'd still be in rotation?
Yes,
and
they'd
all
still be
that.
in rotation. They'd still be part of the scheduled workforce and all that stuff. They would just have, as we briefly talked about with the new laws for the fire chief requirements and training requirements and that, and having a contingency plan, there's really nobody lined up or in the process to fill in for me in my absence for the administrative side of, you know, payroll and budgeting and you know, day-to-day operations, personnel issues and that kind of thing. So this is the step in putting together a contingency plan moving forward and getting somebody in line to help alleviate some of this stuff. You know, it'd be nice to have it'd be nice to have 2 of them, one to help out with the fire side, one to help out with the EMS side, but we need to start somewhere and start with one. There's a lot of, the EMS side is a whole another animal in itself because everything needs to be reviewed and the contracts with the state and, I'm constantly bringing papers to the mayor to sign for narcotics, verification and tracking and, trainings and all kinds of stuff. And that's 70% of our business right now is EMS. Capital? Capital projects. Building repair is the first one on there. It's listed under a bond authorization note there for, I've got $400,000 put in there. I don't know. It's a guesstimate based off some raw numbers that they had given us. Wendell is actually going to be down here tomorrow to meet with me and have more of a fine-tuned plan and hopefully have some more realistic numbers that can go with that, and that's to seal up and fix the outside of the building and the host tower.
Seems like they've been dragging their feet. This has taken,
They did for the longest time, and now, I think now we were
They're-
able to make
They're
them.
moving forward quite quickly now.
Yes.
I mean, this fell down in,
We had another meeting last week, so
yeah,
that's.
this fell down in
Didn't we
17.
pay them once before for something, for some work, $9,400 for, was it them or another engineering firm?
It's a different engineering firm.
That was a different engineering we
Engineering
had,
firm?
we did
They
before,
pulled
and
out
then
real
that
quick.
fell
Yeah,
through.
the report they gave back, Jim, was literally like,
Yeah,
my kid could write it in first grade.
Yeah.
That was when Rick was here, and it was just.
That was
paid
last
Wendell
year.
yet for this?
The year
Not
before,
for, we
sorry,
paid them
year
for
just,
the drawing up the proposal of what needed to be done. We have not paid them for,
Engineering services.
we just, I mean, it wasn't that long ago that we signed
And then they had that accident, you remember that?
and sent in with the, to move forward and build the bid specs and all that stuff. So we're right on target with that now. It seems to be progressing forward. And they've been emailing quite a bit back and forth. And like I said, we met with the engineer, the mayor and I last week, and she came down and took actual measurements and a little bit more. One thing that she did mention was that we're probably going to have an asbestos study done on the when the material fell down, in order for us to dispose of it, we had to send a sampling out for asbestos. They want only the material that came down, like the actual concrete-ish material, was sent out for asbestos. They're looking for asbestos for the material underneath, and PCBs and the caulk and the material, just to make sure, like the landfill. They're looking at around $2,000 to $2,200 roughly, I think.
I thought that they had already done all that. It was already.
I forwarded them everything that we had sampled before, because the DPW literally just piled it up into the dump truck and took it to the landfill, and they had a copy of the certificate from Chris Surma, took it to the lab and had it tested, but according to Wendell, it was only a piece of the material that came off. It wasn't.
Yeah, and she mentioned that they need from the rest of the building.
And I
Yes,
thought
but
that the idea was that the building was built in a time that it was after
no,
it was allowed to be.
because there's a lot of asbestos in that building.
During that time?
Well, I don't want to say a lot. The early materials when the building was built that hold to the VCT tile down on the floor has asbestos in it. The VCT tile itself has asbestos in it. And it's one of those that we could put materials over top of it. We just can't rip it out
Right.
without doing an abatement.
Right. Okay.
So that's the building project. The new tanker was in last year's. That we're looking to take delivery of that probably September-ish, hopefully. Jimmy took that one out. Building HVAC repair, replace. We've been having problems with the air conditioning units that have been in there for, I don't even know how long. Doug, you remember when Vecchio's put those in?
About 15 years ago, maybe?
That was long. I've been here 17, that was before that.
Was it?
so, yeah.
Okay.
20 years ago.
20
In the summertime, they're freezing up and they're leaking down onto the ceiling tiles that the volunteers have replaced over and over again, and we end up with a mess down at the bottom there. So I'm looking for $50,000 there to fix those, level one of the pads out front that a condenser unit sits on, and maybe looking to upgrade some of that air conditioning to a more modern, similar to what we did down in the computer room down there. Maybe look at some of the Mitsubishi units and the heat pump units and that as well.
Is this a guesstimate, or you kind of have kind of quotes, sort of, where you want to go with this?
That's just a guesstimate roughly of, you know, a rough idea that it's been, I've carried it on the last couple of years myself, and Randy had carried it on, you know, prior to me, so it's, what's the radios?
Pardon?
What's the radios?
Well, we've already paid for them, but we're gonna probably finance them. That's this year's budget. That's in this year's budget,
Oh, because it was under a ban, you're putting everything
but we have
under
a
the,
BAN, so
Yeah.
I left it in as an option to bond it instead of paying it outright.
Oh, I see.
The,
So that's in this year's budget.
what radios are we?
The one just spent 79,000 some on.
Those were, bonded through
No,
the.
that was another, that was 59,000. These are the ones you just purchased this year.
pagers can't be 79,000.
No, the,
Moorhan, mobile, or,
I thought
think
that
they were
was done
radio.
up
Pretty
through the
sure they're
volunteers. I thought they,
is the cardiac monitor?
Yeah, the cardiac monitors,
cardiac-
yeah.
Oh, the car, that's
that's
okay,
right.
That's different.
Okay,
That's a big difference.
yeah,
yeah.
okay.
It's not radio.
Those were in, I thought Rick had bonded those before he had left, because those were in
Well,
last year's.
He didn't bond them, he got an bond authorization for them.
Okay,
We haven't borrowed the money yet,
okay.
okay? So I'm proposing to include that in our bond issue
Yep.
when we go to
Right.
a permanent financing in the fall.
Okay.
So
Oh, that's why that,
why
I
it's-
see.
Okay,
it's been-
that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's why there's.
Rescue equipment, we've had quite a few accidents and different things that involve high angle, low angle, people into the creek and that. The rescue equipment there is a couple of 3-to-1 raising and lowering systems, some pulleys and specific rescue ropes, and a stow stretcher that would be able to efficiently and safely assist us in bringing those patients up and down, you know, embankments out on the thruway, the creek beds, different things in there, and that's roughly 6,000 there. Personal protective equipment, looking for 12 sets, I think, 12 or 13. Basically, $39,000 with the new, part of the new volunteer firefighter cancer coverage that's out there is we're moving forward with implementing cancer reduction and reduce the exposures to the carcinogens and different things that we get into. So this would provide that individuals who are interior firefighters with a second set of turnout gear, so once we're at a fire and it does become contaminated, they can be bagged and properly laundered, and they still have another set available to them to be able to, and it helps keep up with our inventory that we have and rolling that forward. So that's that line. Rescue,
Refurbished engine 12?
yep, refurbished engine 12 line, that was in last year's and the previous year's capital projects for apparatus repair. There was 25 each year that was part of that capital monies that were sitting in that account. We talked about it over, throughout the last couple of months, included in the capital projects this year. That's going directly back to E1, which is the manufacturer, to have mechanical upgrades done to it. Nothing cosmetic body-wise at this time. It's just the full mechanical refurb to get us a few more years out of that truck and maybe push off, prolong having to purchase the next one.
so the total funds there, 40,637 to go cover it, because I thought it was on the higher side of the 40s.
That was the exact,
That's
Oh,
the
was it?
exact
Oh,
quote
okay.
from,
Oh, okay.
that's the exact quote from E1.
because I don't usually use dollars and cents,
was-
I usually
yeah,
round everything up.
Yeah, because it'd be like, 41,000, 42.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the exact quote from E1.
Oh, super.
To do the mechanical work out there on it.
Thank you for clarifying that.
And then the Rescue 14 is the, I'm assuming that's another one, Jim, that they're adding it into that bond? No?
Right.
Okay.
Well, no, that's gonna come out, the
No,
total 215,000 is what the volunteers had agreed to pay towards the tanker and in this year's budget. there was a total of 215,000 they were providing for
Okay.
equipment.
Yep,
So I talked to John Sullivan about it, and if you remember, we asked if we could use it. We're gonna finance the tanker.
Right.
In full.
And pay for the rescue and.
Yeah, and then
Capital
apply
funds.
this against the Rescue 14, the total amount, so we don't have to bond it.
Oh,
what's the 35 there, Jim?
that's a
Well,
good-
that's the
that's a
rest
good
of
way to do it.
the total for this year was 215,000.
Okay,
That was gonna be, used towards equipment that the
Okay.
volunteers had agreed to pay,
yep,
so.
So
I'm
we're
just-
buying the whole amount and then using that money to buy the
Yeah.
Yes.
the ambulance.
okay, I understand that now.
So that's pretty much it then, huh?
Yep. Any questions on anything?
Oh, that's good.
You know,
Thank you.
like I said, just touch base with the 10 guys. Once we get to 10 full-time guys, it'll be, it's not, you know, June 1st, I can hire another full-time guy and go. The civil service list won't be out until August, probably mid-end of August, and then you run into an academy at some point, so you're looking at January-ish before we'd get there anyway. With the call volume increasing and the ambulance service future unknown, we're busy. Busy.
Okay. Keep that money coming, chief.
Trying. Anybody have anything else?
No, good times are coming,
Yes, good times are coming.
that's it.
It's not my birthday today, but it's coming
Feels like it.
in August.
Thanks again, right.
Thank you. Is that it?
That's it.
Okay.
You wanna schedule another meeting? Sure. Next week, I guess we want to get the, Tony and,
Chris Sermon?
Good, do it.